Hi, this is Susan Polgar with Grandmaster Ramesh. We are here at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Chennai, India, reporting live from the Chess World Championship between the reigning champion, Viswanathan Anand, and the challenger from Norway, Magnus Carlsen. Today will be the beginning of the second half, Game 7. After the first 6 games, the score is a 4-2 lead by the Norwegian challenger.
Hello everybody. Before we move on to the game, for the viewers, the official website for the World Championship is chennai2013.fide.com, and you can also tweet us your comments and questions to the official hashtag FWCM2013, or you can post your questions and comments to @SusanPolga and @RameshChess.
And of course, as we just saw the score table, it is after the first 4 games that ended in a tie, in a draw. The Norwegian challenger won the last 2 games, which is huge for him. Of course, very disappointing for the reigning champion, for Anand. But today is a new day.
And the players are rested.
They are well rested. The good news from Anand's perspective is he has the white pieces.
Again.
Even though in this match so far it doesn't really show as a huge advantage, but nevertheless I'm sure any grandmaster that's about to play a game would rather have the white pieces than the black.
Yeah, and I think both the players are rested, and they will be showing the same fighting chess which we have seen in the first half of the match.
And we do see at the moment already the reigning champion sipping his tea. Anand is already at the table awaiting the challenger. It seems to be a routine, repeating every day that he's the first one to come to the board and sit there for the first 3-5 minutes or so before the beginning of the game. I have to tell you, I've just been there a bit ago to witness myself. I touched the chair, I was right there, and so all the circumstances that they are dealing with. And here comes the challenger, Magnus Carlsen, taking his seat. He has the black pieces today. He has a comfortable lead, of course, with only halfway through, so anything can still happen. And I would say that this is a crucial game for Anand to try to make a comeback. It's not all lost yet, by all means. If he would win this game today, he would be totally back in the game.
Yeah, I think this will be a very crucial round for Anand to change the momentum of the match. It has been going in Carlsen's favor, at least in the last 2 games. And probably it was costly miss by Anand in the 3rd game, where he came very close to winning the game, especially with the black pieces. That could have probably changed the direction of the match. So,
and we do see lots of photographers, journalists from all around the world. They traveled to see the match of this century, at least so far. And the match has gotten tremendous worldwide interest. We've been told that over 200 million people a day are following the match, the show. And this is tremendous for chess. I think it's a beginning of a new era when it comes to the popularity of chess. And of course, it's thanks to the 2 great champions that we're seeing here. Anand, of course, is a national hero here in India. He is one of the most known sports persons, is that right?
Yeah, probably along with Sachin Tendulkar.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And he's 5 times world champion. So regardless how he'll end up this match, he's a legend, he's a hero. So perhaps he should understand that better, that feel less pressure. I'm sure he feels a lot of pressure, but he accomplished so much that really I think he should keep that in perspective and just try to go all out. This is, I think, his last chance pretty much to have a realistic chance to come back. He's down 2 points. He has the white pieces in this game. It will be really exciting to see how he'll start the game. Then what do you think? Will Magnus repeat e5, if e4, e5?
Yeah, if e4, I think he will repeat e5, because I don't think Carlsen is not the kind of player who will change his strategy midway because of the changed circumstances. His style is usually to go for the maximum. Yeah,
and the clock has been started. First move has been made. Anand didn't make anything different than And you were right, absolutely right. E4, E5 are the first two moves of the game, just like in the previous two games when Anand had white. And they are so far repeating. Wow, that's... I'll be honest with you, now. I wouldn't have been surprised if it's... And no.
Bishop b5
the
again.
Same line again. This is really interesting. Will Carlsen repeat? And he does. This is something very common in many world championships duels.
Yeah, following
that they follow a sequence that they did in the previous game with the same colors. And Anand repeats exactly the same as we've seen in game 6, which is just 2 days ago. I've been told that on the day off, Magnus, true to himself, he took the opportunity to do sports. He's an athlete from all angles, not just in chess, but he loves football, which is known as soccer in the United States. He loves basketball, and he had the opportunity to release some of the tension through that. And so far, we're still repeating move 4, bishop to c5, repeating what we've seen in the very previous game.
First new move of them.
And that's the first new move, probably not a new move period, but a new move compared to game 6. And now the bishop traded for the knight.
Yeah, he took with the b pawn.
And the d pawn took back, which is more customary than the b pawn taking back in such situations. And Anand made yet another move very quickly. Obviously, this is preparation. Developed his knight. Let's just show, if we have a brief moment for our viewers, what would happen on our analysis board if instead of knight developing to d2, white instead would grab that pawn in the middle of the board on e5, which is of course known to experienced players, but for our new chess fans, let's show that queen d4 would be very strong because it would threaten to checkmate on f2, capturing the pawn, as well as capture the knight that's on e5. And white could only defend against one of those two threats at the same time. So, going back to the actual game, white played knight b1 to d2.
Yeah, probably he wants to developing his knight, and he has options of playing b3 and bishop b2, trying to get some pressure, follow it up with knight on c4. Probably that could be a reason, or he could consider transferring the knight to the king side.
That's right. So it's very interesting as of game strategy, because Magnus clearly is trying to steer the flow of the game towards the style that he likes. And he likes to play endgames a lot. He likes to play strategical battles a lot. He's not really seeking out the type of immediate clashes in the opening or even in the middle game. He's not looking out for a blow-for-blow type of style of play, which we've seen a lot more of, let's say, Garry Kasparov or, let's say, Alexei Shirov or some of those great players. So he's more of a long-term, he doesn't mind to play 5, 6, even 7 hours, as long as it's his type of game. And so far, especially in the last 3 games, we've seen that Magnus very successfully led towards those type of games, and Anand had difficulty in avoiding that. Now, to be quite frank, it somewhat surprises me that Anand is not trying harder to steer the game towards complicating the game more, getting a more aggressive type of position.
But probably he doesn't want to seem to be like too desperate for a win at this moment. And if he has some good ideas in this position, and if he feels he can put a problem, if the last 2 games is like it was not Anand who was putting Carlsen under pressure. The position, he did not have slight pressure, which probably would be a good thing for him.
Right.
Probably in this game, we could see some pressure against the e5 pawn. Maybe that could give him something to play for. If the position Anand does not have any pressure, and that's where he's finding it difficult to continue.
And in the meantime, we just saw Anand standing up from the board, which is a rare occasion, and took his jacket off.
It's also a rare occasion, it seems.
Yes, indeed. And it's pretty nice, warm temperature there. I've been there earlier today, and I would take my jacket off if I'm playing it. It seemed, I've been told that the temperature is being set to 22.5 to 23 Celsius in the playing area. So it's pretty comfortable, and I'm sure we'll see Magnus take his jacket off sometime soon. We've seen that ongoing switch between jacket on and jacket off, but I'm sure it's coming soon. In the meantime, this is always a very difficult psychological situation for the side that's being surprised. It's clear that Anand varied from the previous game and surprised somewhat, or he is ahead in the preparation. So Magnus needs to overcome the preparation phase of the game, and from his perspective, he needs to find a way
to get out of the preparation
exactly
as soon as possible
and with as little damage as possible.
Yeah.
And he did that very successfully in the previous game, where also Anand surprised him with the bishop g5 and managed to get away without any major damage, and then got into a normal game. So let's see if today again will Magnus manage, and look how quickly he moved. That's pretty surprising. Only spent maybe 4 or 5 minutes after a relative surprise, I would say. But we have to say that these type of positions are more of a strategic nature, where there is less to calculate and less danger to actually kind of lose out of the opening.
I think one of the reasons for playing out this bishop g4 is in this structure, I think black should try to move the knight, get the pawn to f6, and relocate the knight to either e6 or g6. Or the other option is to take back the bishop to d6, put the pawn on c5, and try to bring the knight to
lots
c6.
of nice knight maneuvers potentially in this line.
And similar plans is also quite common in Sicily and Rosolimo, where they try to relocate the knight to e6 with the pawn on f6. And probably Magnus does not want his knight to come in the way of his bishop, so probably that's why he's trying to get rid of it. And in such static pawn structures, it probably makes sense to keep as less pieces as possible, so he doesn't suffer the lack of space.
So let's talk for a moment about what we're seeing so far in the game. Anand has varied compared to the way he played in the previous game on game 6. So he surprised with some preparation his opponent. We'll see how important that will be. And yet another move. After the bishop came out, bishop now is being attacked.
I think Black Carlsen will just take it, because if bishop h5, white could play probably g4, and the bishop could have a
out
tough
of
time.
Play.
Yeah.
Right. So in the meantime, white already have traded one of his bishops for black's knight, giving up the so-called pair of bishops, but created double pawns for black, which means theoretically at least white has a better, superior pawn structure, but black has the pair of bishops at the moment. So now it's a key moment. Black needs to make a decision to trade the bishop for the knight or not.
I think he would go for the exchange, but there's always the danger that the black bishop for black could turn out to be not very good if it goes to an endgame because of the pawn on e5.
Being
so
blocked.
He needs to be careful that he doesn't get to a situation where his bishop is passive.
So this position actually, according to my database, has been played a number of times. Most of the times black chooses to take on f3. Practically all games between grandmasters, black did take, indeed, traded the bishop for the knight.
Yes, we saw probably bishop h5, g4, and
it's interesting to notice that white has quite good results in the few games that have been played with this particular position after a trade. So statistically, at least, it's very promising for Anand. So far, white has a perfect score, in fact, in the few grandmaster games that this has been reached, this position.
Yeah, probably like seeing the way how things are going in this match, I would think that Carlsen will be very happy with the position if he was having the white pieces, because he has a very small way.
And no, he did not take, which is very interesting, very surprising. This is practically a new move.
At this level.
There is practically no game with this, at least in my database that I'm looking at right here. Very interesting.
Yeah, probably Carlsen indicates that for g4, bishop g6, he's probably going to play queen e7, long castle, and then h5, trying to...
I have a feeling, though, that Magnus may have seen this position before, because playing so quickly, such a big decision, it's quite remarkable. Most grandmasters, either they would know what they are doing, they have seen this before, they have analyzed this before.
Or it's also possible that Carlsen is so sure about his form that maybe he feels he can get away with even a slight digression from the rituals.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's mention again that if white right now would play g4, kicking the bishop back with the idea to then grab the pawn on e5, that would still be a big mistake. And we're not expecting, obviously, that to see because of the same. Let's show that to our viewers. If bishop g6, and if knight grabs the pawn, it's still a mistake because of the same double attack on the knight and the checkmate on f2.
Yeah, probably in this case, white can consider more pressure on the e5 pawn.
Yes.
And probably he needs to go knight d7.
Right. And f6.
Yeah,
so one issue in such situations, if the bishop gets chased to g6, is that the bishop has practically no moves. So black needs to try to find a way to solve that issue of the bishop, to find more activity for the bishop.
Yeah, and it's also important that when we have a pair of bishops, we don't try to get to positions where the pawn structure is fixed and static. It's better to keep the pawns fluid, and where you have possibilities to push your pawns and change the pawn structure.
Yes,
because the knights would feel very comfortable in fixed pawn structures.
Indeed. Generally, it's believed that the pair of bishops is a good thing, and it's a slight advantage, let's say, over a pair of knights or a bishop and a knight pair. However, when positions are roughly closed and there are no open diagonals for those bishops, then obviously the bishops lose significant strengths from their power. But looking at the body language of Magnus, he seems pretty confident and comfortable, even though he's kind of holding his head with one hand. The way he's sitting, it certainly doesn't display a man in a lot of worry or a lot of discomfort.
Yeah, and it's also, I feel Anand would just try to ignore Carlsen's body language and he would try to just stick to the position on the board. And that's very important because if we are going to let our opponent's body language affect our thinking, maybe we can make some mistakes too.
Yes, indeed, and that's of course very important for all competitive chess players, not to get much affected by what the opponent...
it's better not to react to the opponent.
Yeah. Other moves of the board moves, I would say. It's important to just keep your focus on the board, not even worry on who you're playing, period. And I know it's easier said than done, but especially when you're playing somebody higher rated than yourself, or somebody, in this case, the world #1 ranked player, Magnus Carlsen, if Anand can kind of ignore who he's playing, even where he's playing, and just fully focus on the task at hand, on the next move, focus on the game, the better I think it will be for him.
For him, yes.
And of course, he's known that generally he's pretty good at that. But he's also human, so I'm sure to some degree he's affected, especially that he lost already a number of games to Magnus. And we do have another move, and that is the knight moving to f1, which is a very typical move in such situations, regrouping the knight to a better location.
But probably he wants to avoid the variation where if he plays g4, knight g6, and then try to move the bishop, he has this option of allowing h5 for black. Maybe in this move order, now if white can play g4, bishop g6, and get the knight to g3, we delay h5 by a move. Probably that is the logic behind this.
I don't think black can do anything about this g4 idea if white wants to do it, and it's a big if, because white may just play knight g3 without any g4 as well. That's an alternative. Let's just show a tactical trick here for our viewers. If black would now capture the pawn in the middle of the board on e4, and white captures the knight, and then bishop captures the pawn with a check. Now, let's wait for a moment. Here, it looks like a beautiful combination if the king captures the bishop, because then the white queen would be unprotected and black would gain significant material. The problem is that after the bishop takes on e2, the king is not forced at all capture the bishop, even though it was a check, but just can move out of the check and then maintain his material advantage. And we yet have another move in the game. Magnus is playing very confidently and quickly, moved his knight to d7. I have to say that from Magnus's perspective, Magnus again managed to get a type of position he's comfortable with. It's not a sharp position, so we'll see. Although objectively white may be tiny bit better, but it's not a type of position that Magnus is afraid of.
Yeah, both sides have their usual plans here. Okay, I think white has to play either g4 or knight g3 immediately. Otherwise, black would play f6. And in case of g4 later on, black would move the bishop to f7. So I see two approaches now. One possibly to play
h4.
This is another approach because if h5, then this could become a target later on. And if h6, maybe we get some more space for our pieces.
And knight h4, yes, indeed.
Something like this to get the queen to f3, the knight to g5.
That was actually pretty attractive for white, indeed. And so here comes the move. And he indeed played knight to g3. So we may see your idea playing out. So now
probably he has to take bishop f3, queen f3, and g6, followed by f6 and
but
queen
it's
e7.
Pleasant for white, though, I have to say.
Yeah, but after g6, I'm not very sure. For example, if bishop f3, queen f3, g6. Now, if white can get something like this immediately, otherwise, for example, if the
bishop
game goes...
Bishop h6 is another idea.
Yeah, if the game goes quietly, something like this, I think black won't be too unhappy either. And then he can try to relocate the knight.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing that
so he needs to choose between bishop f3 or bishop g6.
Right. Now, at least theoretically speaking, if now black captures the knight on f3, it would mean that black gives up the pair of bishops.
Yeah.
So then at least white would have a theoretical advantage in that black has double pawns on c7 and c6. So that at least would give some comfort to Anand that he has at least a theoretical advantage.
Yeah.
So now it is Magnus's turn, and I think that's one thing about great players like Magnus Carlsen, that they would know, they simply would know in their minds that it's obvious that of course I have to take on f3 or I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And
even though it's obvious, they still need to work out the exact variations on the board and not just blindly go by the intuition.
Absolutely, they need to double check if their intuition was correct. But they have a general understanding, because this is not a type of position that requires calculation of long variations. And therefore, it is really something that you need to trust your instincts. Because spending 15 minutes, 20 minutes on this position, I really don't think you'll make a better decision, because you understand what you understand strategically about the position, and you'll just have to go with your instincts, I think.
Yeah. So Carlsen is having a good think about the position, and as we are discussing about this, normally the strong players, they get the right ideas very quickly. At least they know the direction which the game should be taken to. But we need to check each variations carefully, and we need to be very careful about the move orders we choose to get the position we want. So there is this balance between our intuition and concrete play, which is always
that's right.
Sometimes some players could get confused because of this. Sometimes many players ask when I need to calculate variations concretely and when I should trust my intuition. So this if we trust our intuition too much, probably we will be losing out on calculation. And if we try to calculate everything, then we miss out the logic behind the moves.
That's right. It's the whole point is to find that golden middle road, the right balance between trusting your intuition.
Is there anything in the position that can give us a clue about whether we should try to calculate variations or rely on our intuitions?
Well, in general, and we do have a move, he did indeed take on f3, and that raises, of course, an interesting question in that why didn't he trade immediately when the bishop was attacked?
Yeah, we have a move as well, queen f3.
Anand also recaptured, obviously, with the queen, not to ruin his pawn. And another move, as you recommended, indeed, g6 to neutralize those knight moves on h5 or f5.
Yeah, I think if black is allowed to play queen e7, f6 and long castle, he should be perfectly fine. And later on he can get rook f8 and maybe even start for initiative with f5. Because now the knight on g3 is not really... He would probably prefer to be on e3, from where he could go to g4 and probe the black squares that have been weakened. Right. And in case if white tries to take advantage of the move g6, maybe black would just stop it midway.
With h5,
and still the knight on g3 doesn't look...
yeah, I mean, I can easily foresee that knight will make further moves to regroup to more active place now that he provoked black's g6 move, which weakened some dark squares on h6 or g7. The knight did its job. Maybe better off moving on to back to f1 and e3. Perhaps not right away, but after developing the bishop and castling, I easily foresee that maneuver coming.
I think probably white has to... Okay, if we could get an early f4, maybe that could be interesting as well. But I'm
F4?
not sure.
Yeah, let's show that on our board. What we're meaning is to move the queen out of the way, probably not right away, and then play f4, opening the position with the f
if he does not take, we could even
advance further.
Yeah.
So that's...
And if he takes ef4, we could try to take with the bishop. But the point is, it is so early in the opening, and does it make sense to move the queen and keep the king in the center for so long? The other approach would be positional, which would be like bishop d2 or bishop h6.
Right, so I think we are seeing another positional game, another strategical battle between the two giants, and let's see if Anand will finally make a comeback and be back in the match.
Yeah, I think I would be happy if I was playing black, because I don't see a concrete way where white can create problems for black, and maybe he has to just settle down for a quiet game with bishop h6, bishop d2 and long castle. I would have liked to see how the game would have turned if Anand had played g4 instead of knight g3, allowing simplification of the position.
So Magnus has retreated again to the rest area, and I have seen it earlier today. Actually, they are sharing that area. They do not have their separate areas, unlike in many previous World Championships.
I believe you had a tour of the...
Yes, I did, and it was really interesting to see that apparently because of the respectful and amicable relationship between the players, they are happily sharing that rest area. They have although they're not sharing their fridge, they have their separate fridges. One says Anand, the other one says Carlsen, and they have a somewhat different choice of drinks and snacks in there. But other than that, they have shared nuts and sandwiches and other little snacks, so they can get refreshed a bit during the game. And Anand is about to make yet another move.
Bishop d2.
Bishop e3, actually. He's offering another exchange of bishops. It seems that Anand is playing pretty cautiously, and it's honestly, I'm quite surprised. I'm surprised as well. It's almost like he gave up. I hope not. For us, for commentators, for fans, I really hope that he would be playing a bit more ambitiously and take more risk. But maybe he just needs some more time to recover from the blow that he was given the last two games.
It seems like he wants to prove to himself more that he can hold on to those quiet positions. His moves have been really surprising. The choice of moves he has played. Probably G4 would have been
bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Honestly,
would have led to a result.
I was hoping in the opening phase that he would rather play the King's Gambit or if not the King's Gambit, the Scotch or the Guccio Piano or one of the alternatives that potentially can give a more dynamic play rather than what we're seeing. I'm sure Magnus
this move is really surprising.
Must be pretty relieved, in a situation when, let's say, if the rest of the games end in a draw, would obviously let Magnus coast towards winning the title. He shouldn't be much concerned about such a position or such opening choice.
Yeah, probably the position still has some venom. I think if Black takes Bishop E3, this is the analysis we are looking at. And probably he wants to play F4 now. And after the exchange of the pawns, White would get nice pressure along the F file.
Well, maybe Anand wants to play Magnus style for a change.
Yeah, and then he can play a long castle, double the rooks on the F file and start H4, H5.
Yes,
maybe
and
he can
only
get something.
White who can actually push a little.
And Black would get, for example, in such a scenario. Okay, of course, none of the moves are forced.
Of course, in the meantime, the pawn on A7 is hanging.
Yeah,
so
pawn on A7 is hanging. But I'm just trying to say that he gets the square, but this could be kicked away unless Black gets C5 too. Yeah, so this would gain him some time by keeping an eye on the pawn.
Right.
And in case Black prefers to castle on the queen side, I think White would go for long side castle and start H4, H5.
So maybe Black should not trade the bishop himself, but rather play Queen E7 right away, preparing the castle to the queen side. Probably will
and then
not.
It would be very difficult for White to execute F4.
I think so, but also I think it's important to point out that we're not so likely to see Black castle into the king's side in this position, because then White is ready to castle to the other side of the board and start an attack on the H file, pushing the H pawn up.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
That's right, and then keep pushing the pawn up, H4, H5.
Yeah, probably Queen E7 seems keeping the options open.
It's pretty interesting to see how quickly both players are playing. We already are having 11 moves behind us in about half an hour, less than half an hour into the game. That's relatively fast, I think, given that it's not following a main opening line or some position that has been played many, many times. They are already in virgin territory here. They are out of any books, not following any previous Grandmaster game. So it's interesting how quickly they both play.
Yeah.
And both look pretty relaxed. Both seem to be happy.
Yes. Susan, you were saying sometime before that you went to the playing arena on the restroom, and the players had a different fridge for their own refreshments. How important it is during the game to eat or drink something? Is it necessary or? Well,
I think drinking is pretty important for sure. Some players would only drink water, others would drink juice. I think you
need to keep yourself
you just need to get hydrated also. I know a lot of players use the bathroom more often during a game than they would otherwise because of all the adrenaline, and then it's not unusual. Some players would go easily 5-10 times during a game.
Yeah, I know many players who are afraid to have anything during the game because at the crucial moment they don't want to
needing
waste
to go.
Time. Yeah, needing to go to the
and we yet have another game as we anticipated. Queen to E7 indeed, preparing the castle to the queen side of the board, where Black has kind of a nice defensive pawn structure once the king is there. So it will be interesting to see what plans Anand will come up with in this game. Now, the other interesting question to kind of, I'm thinking about, if Anand would to offer a draw in 5 moves from now, let's say. Because, let me tell you something, if you look at this position, among most grandmasters, it wouldn't be an unusual thing that one side or the other offers a draw, right? It's one of those type of positions.
Usually in this position at the high level, we can see like many players kind of give up hope of having an advantage with the white pieces, and once they realize they don't have an advantage out of the opening, it's not quite unusual to offer a draw.
However, that's one of the things that Magnus is so known for and so famous for and so admired for, that he is not, probably somebody forgot to tell him in his vocabulary the word draw. And because of that, and we saw that in, I think, a key psychological moment of this match in game 3, when in a seemingly completely dead-drawn position, Anand offered a draw after spoiling his advantage earlier in the game. Even there, in that endgame, with opposite-colored bishops, with only 3 pawns each on the same side of the board, Magnus refused to draw. So I think Anand at this point has to be ready to fight all the games till the bitter end. With that said, what do you think? If Anand would offer a draw, given the match situation, that Magnus has a 2-point lead, which is quite substantial, would Magnus hear that offer and shake hands?
Yeah, first, that's a big if, because under the circumstance, Anand is unlikely to offer a draw. And the second thing is, I think he would continue to prefer to play and not take the draw.
Magnus.
Because he has told in the press conference as well that every game needs to be fought till the bitter end, and that's how chess has to be played. So I think irrespective of the match situation, even if it's the last round where a draw would suffice for the title, I think in such positions he would prefer to continue.
Well, I don't think in the last game. if it would guarantee him the title, I think that's pushing it. But anything short of that, I actually have a feeling that he'll just, let's play. I'm not afraid. And it's not because he thinks necessarily that he'll win it, but I think it's a message, psychological message he wants to relay, that he's not afraid.
Yeah, and this approach has taken him this far. Okay, we
have a move. Indeed, white has castled to the queen side.
Yeah, probably black will do the same.
Safety, that's most expected indeed. Anand hasn't even spent 15 minutes yet for the first 12 moves. Magnus spent a bit more, but still, that's actually a very interesting thing, that unlike most top-level championships, tournaments where time pressure is a very significant part of the game, it's not really in this match.
Yeah, and Susan, today we have a guest in the studio. That is Grandmaster Dronavalli Harika from Andhra Pradesh, India. And she is the second Grandmaster among the women from... In India, we have only 2 women who have completed the title of Grandmaster, and she is one of them. We are glad to have her here shortly.
Yes, and we'll have a pleasure of talking to Harika very soon and ask her opinion about the match so far and the game today so far, as well as of women's chess in India, and to learn more about herself. So Magnus, in the meantime, is still thinking about his move, and we'll have Ramesh back soon. But in the meantime, it's my pleasure to welcome India's second Grandmaster among women, Dronavalli Harika. And welcome. We'll be able to see you in a minute. In the meantime, we're seeing the board. So what do you think of the game so far today?
Today we thought maybe it will be more aggressive position, but again solid position. We have to see what he's aiming for, and still it's starting normal peddling position, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, well, it is nice having you, and we do have a move. Magnus has just castled to the queen side, as we have indeed anticipated. I think the position is close to equal. What do you think?
Yeah, it's looking so. It's a normal position, and maybe white has to aim for d4 or so, and but it's difficult to exactly guess what is happening, and maybe like it's bishop knight. I think bishops will be exchanged at some point, and maybe knight c5, knight e6. And for me, as I'm a Berlin player, it looks for black. It's okay, but okay, only who is expert in this position should understand what's happening. But for me, it looks like black is completely fine.
Well, let's talk in the meantime a little bit about Indian chess and Indian chess for women. You have accomplished a lot. You're the second highest rated woman player in India. One of only 2 women who reached the highest title in chess, the overall Grandmaster title. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And tell us, is there a lot of support for chess and women's chess here in India?
Yeah, it's going good. When I started chess, it was like it started from only age groups. If you're doing well, it's already a great thing. But right now, it's more into like a main. We have gone into mainstream and we are performing well. It's also we have many players in 2400s already. So it's nice to see the development. And I wish like only one thing we couldn't achieve so far is some medals in international Olympiad and. Like we got 4th place this time, and we are hoping that we will do well and we'll get a medal soon and make a place like how Russia, Georgia and China are making places in every medal list.
So are you a professional chess player, playing chess mostly, or are you have a other job as well?
Yeah, I'm just playing professionally and like it's been 13 years already, so other than chess I don't do much. And I am hoping that someday I will win World Championship too, and that's what I'm working for right now.
We have another move. We'll continue with talking about you and Indian chess in a minute, but knight e2, the knight retreated. Perhaps you can make the moves on our analysis board as well. Black has castled and then the knight moved to g3, so that's our current position here. I'm sorry, the knight moved back to e2. That's what I mean. So
okay, white is preparing for d4, it looks. Or
now
g4, and
if white would manage indeed to push up the d3 pawn to d4 and trade the e pawn, black's e5 pawn for the d pawn, that would be an accomplishment for white, because then white would have a pawn majority on the king's side, 4 versus 3, and then of course that would be somewhat of a drawback for black having the doubled pawns.
Yeah, and like white can anytime push this g4 and like the king side pawns, and black will be like little bit
inferior.
Yeah.
So black should try to avoid that, or
but
at
I
least
don't think
prepare.
It's maybe, but okay, bishop into e3 and c5 doesn't look good. So I don't think how to stop it exactly.
Yeah, I think black perhaps needs to maybe bring the rook to e8 and put pressure on the e file, on the e4 pawn perhaps. So after the d4 and the exchange of pawns, white may need to worry about the e4 pawn. That may be an idea.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what Magnus is going to do next.
So tell us about being an Indian chess player, and what image, what impact did Anand make for Indian chess?
I think chess started just because of Anand, and because of his achievements there is a name. Like for example, I don't think many like even if people doesn't know what is chess, they will know Anand. Like by then they can recognize what is chess sport. So it's also it's a great thing that we are seeing a world championship match here, and the two like we keep playing here, and it's great festival for us. So
you traveled from far. You don't live in Chennai. Where do you live?
I live in Hyderabad. It's also south part of India, but okay, it's a bit far to travel. So I've come here for 2 days, and I will be seeing from home, and I'll be supporting Anand.
So we know that things are going crazy here in Chennai. There is a lot of attention to the match. How is it in the rest of India, like in Hyderabad where you live?
Actually, I didn't get chance to be in my place for a long time. I have come from China and immediately have been here. But it's interesting that yesterday I was coming in a cab, and even the car driver know what is happening with the match, and it's very good to see, spectacular to see the chess got so much of popularity right now because of this match.
That's absolutely fantastic. And what are your next immediate plans of your next tournament?
Okay, the next year will be very crucial for me because there are Grand Prix and Olympiad and World Championships. So I'm just trying to work hard, and the next year will be very tough for me.
So how many hours a day, more or less, do you practice on average?
It's actually I maybe 6 to 7 hours. It depends on every day. Like if I'm very tired, or it depends. But most of the time I'll be on chess only, either seeing games or either checking what's happening or analyzing, preparing. So, but most of the time I'll be on chess. I can't really tell how many hours exactly.
Course. And most chess players today believe that physical preparation is really important. Just like Magnus, even here during the match on the day offs, he takes every opportunity to do some physical activities like play soccer or basketball or such. Do you do any sports?
Yeah, for sure. Even I think it's very important to be physically fit. Like I do some kind of exercise for sure every day, like either jogging or going to gym or something or other, or just a change, but I'll be doing some kind of physical exercise.
Great. Well, I know you have a flight to catch.
Yeah, I'll be leaving in an hour or so from here. So,
well, thank you so much for joining us. It's nice to learn a bit more about you and get your input on the game going on. And let's hope we'll have an interesting game, and perhaps Vishy can come back. And
even I hope so. I think I'll be on the flight, and I'll be fingers crossed to see the result. What's going to happen? It'll be interesting for me to watch.
Well, thanks for joining us, and have a safe flight.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye. And we're seeing Magnus still thinking, holding his head. Both jackets are off, and both seem pretty relaxed. Anand is kind of looking at us here, thinking, wondering what will Magnus come up with here. And as I mentioned, I think the game plan for White, for Anand, is to try to trade those d-pawn for the black's e-pawn. And let's show in a moment when we'll get our analysis board back, we'll show that. But that would be strategically an achievement for White if White would succeed with that trade.
D4.
The d4 and trading the d-pawn for the e-pawn.
Yeah, it's not easy for Black also to find a good plan. Ideally, he would like to have the pawn on c5 after the exchange of the bishops. But if he tries to do it directly, for example...
So why can't Black do that right away? Trade the bishops
and try to get c5. But probably this creates a weakness on the c5. And White has 2 ways to... But
the Black Knight perhaps can guard that d5 square.
For example, if he tries to do it this way, probably I can go
and
for
White
f4.
Has some pressure
along the f
file. Yes.
Yeah, and the knight is not too well placed, considering the 2 pawns restrict the mobility of the knight.
That's very true.
And knight becomes a kind of a defending piece. All the time it has to defend against the threat of knight d5. Generally, it's better not to keep pieces in defensive squares. Probably he could go for a prophylactic move like this, where knight d5 doesn't create a threat, and hope to get the knight to e6 at the same time, not allowing White to play f4. So probably this is an option. Maybe in this case White can consider, for example, if
and
I think something like
f6,
this.
just
yeah,
kind
but
of
in this
hold.
case probably White gets more space. Maybe he could include moves like this and try to keep some pressure.
Well, as you said earlier, probably Magnus would prefer to be on the white side of this position, and it's a dream position for him. He really loves these type of positions.
Yeah, probably it's not a good idea to do that immediately. In that case, he has to find a way to play useful moves. And the other interesting thing we need to note is Black cannot do what he wants to do here because
the f7 pawn.
The f7 pawn is hanging. So if he tries to play f6, maybe White can play a useful waiting move so as to get out of checks. And even here, this will be not so good because
the other pawn
is hanging.
Yes.
So I think one of the things which Carlsen would try to do is to find a way to get the knight to f8.
And here we have a move, rook e8, rook h to e8. That's a move I was actually suggesting because
to prevent
preparing for a d4. So if now White plays d4 and Black trades that pawn. That would open up the e-file, and black would now have pressure on that pawn on e4.
Yeah, but we need to
then
consider queen f7 as well. So that's a line direct variation where things are being forced. So white has to consider that as well. Yeah, so d4 is an option, but I don't think
Anand will rush with that idea, especially in view of the rook h to e8 move.
And another idea probably is to go for g4, h4, h5, and
I
to
think
do
you
it
can
directly.
Anticipate a long game again.
Yes, there are
probably
many
easily 50-60 moves,
which Carlsen won't mind, I think. And I think today I'm also impressed with Anand's body language. He seems to have recovered from the 2 losses.
Yes.
And he was looking very down, especially after in the press conference. He was looking kind of not his natural self, but he seems to have regained his composure and just taking this as a fresh game in a new tournament. That's very important that they recover from such bad results, and it's normally not a very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I think I read this in an interview with Magnus is that he found out that he will be the challenger for the World Championship here in November in Chennai, April 1st, when he qualified. And it wasn't an April Fool's joke. It was for real. And it was a long time to prepare for it. So the tension was accumulating for months after months after months. So it was a lot of time to wait. And he was really ready when the time came. It was nice to release all that anticipation, all that energy into the games. And I think both players, I know from personal experience, when you prepare for these type of long anticipated matches, one of the hardest thing is to wait the weeks and the months until it actually happens. And when it happens, you kind of go with the flow, and you're just so incredibly busy with one game and then the next game and then the in-between times that now things actually flow very quickly and are very intense. And all the both players, I'm sure, are trying to give their all physically and mentally and emotionally. But I know that when it's all over, about 10 days from now, both players will be totally exhausted.
Yes.
And they will just need some days, if not weeks,
just unwind.
To unwind, and all that adrenaline that has been built up and all that expectation and everything, it's just going to be a lot of release of tension at that time. But we're still very far from that. We're only midway. We are doing live commentary here from the World Chess Championship from the Hyatt Regency in Chennai, India. And we have another move. Move 14, a move we were talking about, we were expecting, very typical for such situations. Looks like a senseless move for no reason, but it's an important move to move the king away from any potential check on the c1 h6 diagonal, as well as, not less importantly, to protect the pawn on a2, which was on an undefended square earlier. So I wouldn't
important to cover our weak points before they get exploited.
I wouldn't be terribly surprised if
b8
Magnus would respond with a similar strategy and move his own king as well to b8. So all 3 pawns there in front of the king would be unprotected territory.
Yeah, probably like in such situations, maybe it's not a bad idea to keep the bad bishop. I have seen some games where black tries to play bishop d6, keep the bad bishop, and play c5, and make it very difficult for white to get any pawn breaks.
I don't know if I agree with that. I'm sure you've seen it, but I'm not sure if I would like that idea.
Yeah, because in this position probably like g3 and f4.
Because let's say you would do that, you would put the bishop to d6 and play c5. That bishop then, and let's show what we're talking about, moving the bishop to d6, and let's say white plays rook e1 or just some waiting move, and c5. Now that bishop could be also considered a tall grown pawn.
Yeah.
and of course the bishop being a theoretically higher valued piece than pawns, that's not a good complement for a bishop.
But probably this works when the white knights are on d2 and f3, where it's not easy to get to the d5 square. But then advantage of having the knight on e2 is immediately we can try to exploit the weakness. So probably that's one reason.
So I personally would not expect the bishop d6 move. I think
King
Anand
b8
would be quite pleased if Magnus would choose that game plan.
Yeah, probably we can expect returning the compliment with king b8.
Well, I think this is going to be a game of patience, because it's going to be a very slow type of game where both sides are maneuvering, positioning their pieces, and eventually white will be probably the one who needs to try to open the position, either with d4 or f4, the two breaking options that we talked about. And Magnus is walking back. We can see on the screen Magnus is taking his seat, jacket coming back on, perhaps not so decisively, but it's slowly but surely coming on, and he has the jacket on. And now it is Vishy who has the jacket off, which is somewhat unusual. It means he means business, perhaps, just like maybe Garry Kasparov used to have the habit of taking his watch off when he means business, when he's down to showtime. And now it's jacket on and off game going on.
Yeah, at some point I think for king b8 maybe white could try to play a useful move like g3, and with the threat of taking on c5, knight c5, maybe queen e3 and get f4. For example, for a move like this, I'm not sure whether g3 is required here, but the idea is let's say now the queen takes c5, the pawn on f7 is a target. So, and here we have f4.
Yeah, and so white I think has some
pull,
some pressure on black.
So he should, as you said, they should try for the f4 or the d4 break at the right time, and we should position the pieces accordingly. So in that sense, maybe a move like rook h1, maybe after g3, would not be so bad as well.
So we could almost say that white has a little bit of an advantage in that it is in white's hand if and when to break, while black seems to be more on the defensive, on anticipating, on preparing against white's breaking options.
Yeah, on that note, maybe it's also interesting that white can
keep the
bishops if he feels, and then try to get maybe like queen g3 and f4. So
what do you think about white perhaps moving the bishop to d2 and c3?
To get this,
I'm not sure if it's a great idea, but at least it's an idea. Pressuring somewhat black's pawn on e5, and that is, I think, why white is at least theoretically somewhat better, because black has that pawn on e5, and we have a surprising B6 move. We have b6. I guess Magnus maybe wants to put the king on b7.
Or I have a crazy idea. Maybe he can play knight f8 and bishop c5, bc5.
No. That would be triple pawns. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Yeah. Sorry to disagree, but I just don't. That would hurt my eyes.
Anyone's eyes.
Yeah. It crossed my mind also, but I was afraid to say that. That's just too crazy. No,
sometimes it's at least theoretically we need to consider such crazy ideas.
Yes,
so sometimes they may work in maybe 1 in 10 cases.
Yes, I mean, in one hand it would get a nice control of the d4 square. I mean, that's about the only good thing about it.
Yeah, but if white can get knight c4,
it really very, very, very rare that having triple pawns would be good for you, and you generally would want to avoid that. So b6, I think he just wants to simply have the king on b7 and have it a bit more active rather than on b8. And given the fact that the white no longer has a light squared bishop, the king is completely safe, so it's really not much to worry about as of the king's safety here. Both kings are castled on the same side of the board, so I think that gives a really comfort for both kings.
Yeah, now I think white has to decide whether to keep the bishops with bishop c1 or bishop d2.
I kind of like that idea. If white really wants to play for a win, I think keeping the bishops may be a good thing. And just before we had the last move, I was about to say that the fact that let's highlight those e4 and e5 central pawns that are blocked, and they define the pawn structure really, because they're not likely to go anywhere anytime soon. White, at least theoretically, can attack that pawn on e5 with his bishop, while obviously black can never attack the white pawns on e4 or d3 or all those light squares. So at least that gives white some hope for later on in the game. So let's see if Anand will choose to withdraw his bishop to make sure those bishops don't get exchanged.
Or g3.
Or he can try g3 and immediately start preparing some kind of action and opening of the position with f4. One thing that all developing players need to learn, that in order to make progress in a game of chess in a relatively close or semi-closed position, that's what we're having right now, eventually the only way you can make progress is to open the position. And opening the position means trading pawns, opening some files for your rooks and diagonals for your bishops. So that's what this game is all about, to see when and how and if white will open the position, open the d file or the f file, and only so white will be able to create some dynamic, some tension in the game. Otherwise, if they just keep unlimitedly going back and forth with the pieces, nothing will happen. So
the question is, how do we prepare the pawn breaks? And we need to get it at the right time. The timing of such pawn breaks is probably also very important.
Timing is everything, as they say. Immediately playing d4 is possible, but probably not a good idea for white, because the e4 pawn is still kind of under pressure. So let's say take. And now black cannot take, I think, on e4, because then the knight could take on c6 and trap the rook. So but black would have other options, maybe knight e5, or there is even interesting idea, maybe knight b8. And now black protected the pawn, while the e4 pawn is still under pressure, and I don't see a clear way how to protect it.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so we do not expect, I think, white to play d4 yet at this early stage. I think white will definitely make some further preparatory moves. And there are a good number of those type of moves. We talked about g3, we talked about bishop d2, and C1. Anand played h4. And we talked about that idea as well.
Yeah, probably earlier. It's to preempt. Now if h5, maybe you could play d4, ed4, knight d4, knight b8, and bishop g5. Maybe that could be
that's very interesting
indeed. Now maybe this could be considered, because now
bishop g5 creates a skewer there on the queen and the rook.
He does not have f6 anymore.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Probably that's why this, including moves h4, h5 favors white in
Absolutely,
this variation.
You're right there. So h4, very typical type of move. White now wants to play h5 also, perhaps, to advance if black allows it, to open the h file. And we've seen that several times, I think, in this match, when we've seen a rook staying in the corner, not making any move, and then advancing the pawn in front of it in order to open the file. So it's a very time efficient thing when the rook doesn't waste any time in order to get onto an open file. And that's the strategy we are seeing here.
Yeah, initially I was a bit surprised with the white strategy, because I felt maybe g4 could have given more action, but probably I didn't go deep and understand the position with all its things. But now it looks easier to play for white than black, because the knight d7, I think, is the problem now. To get it to the right square, it's not easy. The fact that the pawn on f7 is always keeping the queen tied. So
it's very interesting, because unlike what I think most of us have anticipated that Anand will try to go for a very dynamic, aggressive game.
He's still keeping the
I think he's trying to give a medicine of his own, of Magnus's style.
Yeah, but that's what he has been trying in all the games.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. Well, in the meantime, we're taking a break, but you don't go anywhere, all our viewers. We're just having a change in the commentary team. We're having Lawrence and Grandmaster Gupta replacing us for the next hour. Enjoy their excellent commentary, and we'll be back after that.
Hello everybody, good afternoon. And if you've just joined us, welcome. This is Game 7 of the World Championship match. Here in Chennai between Viswanathan Anand and Magnus Carlsen. I'm Lawrence Trent and I'm delighted to be joined once again by Grandmaster Gupta. How are you?
Very good. Very happy to be here.
Good. Well, I am in a state of not shock, but disappointment at how this game has started. I thought that Vishy
would go bang bang, yeah?
Well, his strategy so far to play quietly in most of these positions has backfired.
Yeah, but he's trying to play, let's say, trying for attacking chess, but Magnus has been very solid on the other side, yeah? He's playing Berlin, so it's not... You don't get such a sharp battle in Berlin.
But why? But surely there must be... What about playing...
Yeah, he could play Scotch, he could have played King's Gambit.
He could have played D4. He could have played something else there. He could have started...
Yeah. It's also very surprising for me that Berlin has always been Magnus' one of the main repertoires.
Right.
And Anand, he didn't really show anything for this during this match. So I'm really kind of surprised that what they had prepared during the camp, such a big training camp. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's have a look at what's going on the board. Maybe Vishy has made a bit of progress, because after h4, King b7 was played by Magnus, just improving the king position.
Yeah.
And now Vishy continued
h5, and Magnus took on e3
with his plan, and Magnus took on e3. Now, why I said what I did before is because, you know, Magnus has been able to get positions where he can exchange a lot of pieces, and even though Vishy might have been a tiny bit better in a lot of the games, he hasn't proven that that's enough.
True.
So I was just hoping that Vishy would literally slug it out with Magnus now. Just try something where it's double-edged, the chances for both sides. He takes more risks and tries to outplay him like that, because these are the positions that Magnus thrives in. So I'm just very surprised that we've got another game like this. So
yeah, it was a strange opening choice. I have to agree with you for Anand, but you have to understand, like, he's coming from 2 losses, and it's not very easy to just go there and play such a sharp battle as well. So I understand Anand's point of view, like he wants to play some solid position where he has some slight edge and try to continue from there.
And they're playing very quickly. Look at this. Well,
so
Magnus
bishop e3, queen e3, knight c5, again were natural moves.
c5, all natural stuff.
Yeah,
so
knight wants to come to e6, pawn to c5, and knight to d4, and black is very happy.
Well, I'm looking at this position and I just don't see any problems for black at all.
And again they are playing quickly.
They're playing very quickly. So hg6.
I hope hg6, yeah?
I assume hg6 will be played.
Yeah.
Is he thinking about taking with the f pawn?
No,
I can't believe it. No. hg6 has been played, and of course white in many positions wanted to play d4
and get this kingside majority.
Right. But
so it helps him in the endgame, but as we know, Magnus is quite decent in endgames already himself, so
right.
Yeah, I didn't understand why Anand didn't go for d4 in the beginning, like instead of knight e2. Maybe we can show them.
So in this position here,
yeah,
d4 immediately.
d4 immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, this is usually what white aims for, to get this 4 versus 3 on the king side, and black c pawn is double, so Black won't be able to use advantage. I mean, he won't be able to take advantage of this double C pawn. So let's say you take on d4, bishop d4, bishop d4, rook d4, knight e5. Maybe just take on d8 and queen e2 or queen e2 probably. Yeah, but maybe black has some initiative here with queen g5 and rook d2. Yeah,
that's annoying. So then maybe that's
why. Yeah, I understand.
But even still, the idea of playing d4 felt like it was.
But yeah, Anand also was trying for this idea. That's why maybe he went knight e2.
Yeah.
And yeah, he played rook e8 to stop this idea d4 because you take and you're attacking e4 pawn.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get back to the position they are at.
Yeah, so this is the current position, everybody watching at home. Of course, it's...
It looks very solid, yeah,
it
for
looks
black.
very solid. White needs to do... okay, he's achieved something. He's got the open H file, but... yeah, how
it
big
doesn't
is
look
that?
so much.
Doesn't feel like so much, right?
Maybe f4 here.
Okay, so f4. And let's assume I take it.
I take with the knight.
And I try and exchange more
Another
pieces.
piece, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just...
why not?
The more pieces I exchange, the happier I am with black.
Maybe I would go rook d to f1 and just say that I have slightly better pawn structure and just keep on playing.
Yeah. But is this...
I mean, this is the least... I mean, this is the maximum I can see for white anyway.
The maximum, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so something like that might happen. But Magnus, he's played very quickly. He's got up from the board. He doesn't seem too unhappy. And Vishy, again, has got one of these positions where he has to try and
do something, yeah? Try to complicate the game. I don't see how, but that's what he wants to do.
Right. And he's going to have to find something decent. Now, looking at his body language, doesn't seem to me like he's overly happy. He knows his position is probably slightly better, but it's marginal, isn't it? It's
in computer terms, maybe you would say 0.05.
Right.
So yeah, that's about it.
Not much going on. So let's talk about. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, Abhijit was a crushing blow. To lose this game was. I felt...
it was painful.
Yeah.
It was painful for me. It was painful for all the Vishy supporter. And I can totally imagine, what it must have felt to Anand.
And is it the case today that he can't lose? If he loses this game, is that it? Is it over if he loses today?
No, obviously after going down -3, it's going to be very difficult to come back. I mean, it's going to be difficult.
Right.
Yeah, but if he loses today, it's going to be match over, I guess.
And if he draws today?
Still has some chances, you never know. Still has 2 more whites. So, and nerves, plays an important part.
Sure. But
like you could see in candidates, the last game.
Well, this was...
he just crumbled, Magnus.
Absolutely crumbled, Magnus. So the nerves do get to him. But he doesn't look nervous at all today. And I think he's relieved. I would have loved to have seen Vishy really, slug it out with Magnus, really exchange blows and make it complicated if there's a way to do it. And instead it's, it's
okay, let's try to analyze something here. Let's say f4.
So f4?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe I could play even f5 for black.
Oh, interesting. Okay. If I take?
Queen takes.
And that looks good for black, right?
I guess.
Because you can't play d4 because you've got this shot.
Also, you can show maybe queen e4, rook e4, and knight c3. I just take on d4. Yeah.
So that doesn't work for white.
Yeah.
So
f4, f5. Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is Magnus's idea then, because f4 really feels natural.
Yeah.
In that position. So f5, and if you take this way,
I take gf. Well, I would say I would take on e5 twice and put knight to f4, but okay, it hardly looks sufficient. I mean, it hardly looks more than 0.05.
Maybe a little something, but
yeah, you could play knight d6.
Yeah, and these rook
endgames.
Yeah.
Yet another rook endgame.
Another rook endgame. This is surely the last thing that Anand needs is another rook ending. So f4, f5.
Yeah.
Is the idea. And is there anything else?
I don't see. I don't see it.
Yeah, well, black's threatening to take everything on in the middle, so...
Yeah, the more pawn gets exchanged, the closer it becomes to your draw, so...
Right. Does he have another move here instead of f4? What about...
g3.
g3.
Uh-huh.
Preparing f4.
Preparing f4, yeah.
But now, can black play f5 anyway?
Most natural move.
So g3 has been played by Viswanathan Anand. They've both used about 35 minutes each. We're already on move 20, so they're playing it quite quickly today. But is f5... is that just maybe too weakening? Maybe white can just take. And...
I don't know. You have to play at some point, you have to take a3 or something, just to get out of it, the back rank. Because I was thinking some rook h6.
Rook h5 or rook h6?
Rook h5 or rook h6,
yeah.
I mean. But let's say even queen f7.
Queen f7, yeah. I mean, it's just... no, there's just not much...
Yeah, queen f3, e4 maybe.
The rooks are well placed in the middle.
Everything is well placed actually for black.
Yeah.
Pawn is on e4, f5, knight on c5. Right. What else you want with black?
Right. So, f5. Is there another idea here for black?
Maybe f5. He just wants to play quietly f3, and maybe try and double the rook on h file.
But now maybe I can just play rook h8, no?
Yeah, you could.
Stop your plan.
No, I think it's... Yeah, I take on h8. And take on f5.
And d4.
And d4.
And knight d7, protecting everything.
And you're happy once again.
Well, I'm not ecstatic, but I'm not exactly...
But still, it's a position again. It's not completely
a little something,
draw.
something.
I could take on e5 and then maybe I'd try to use this gf pawn versus f pawn. Yeah,
you've got essentially an extra pawn.
But this is the only problem. Like, still I have to cover my back rank. I still haven't played a3 or b3.
Right.
So, and it's...
So you like after f5, f3...
Let's say after rook h8, f5, f3, rook h8.
You can also play rook h8 straight away, but then that allows f4, does it?
I mean, it's not much even after f4, but what we want to do is we want to play f5 after f4. This is our main idea, yeah? No, f5 looks normal, I think, for black. That's f5, f3.
It's hardly fireworks, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's again another slow positional grind, but I just feel like this plays into Magnus's hands because this is what he's.
Do you think it'll be another long game, long 6-7 hour
Yeah, I
game?
think we're going to have a good 5-6 hours today somehow, and I think we're probably going to get a rook ending as well at some point. But maybe today, out of all of the days, it's actually going to be Vishy pressing. But
Let's hope so.
well,
I mean, I haven't seen in this match Vishy hasn't been able to push with white at all.
no, nothing really. I mean, it would be great for the match, in
Yeah.
my opinion, if Vishy wins today. For the neutral fan, it would be great. It means he only has 1 point to make up. And then the nerves and the tension would be there again, and we'd have a real fight. I think if Magnus easily draws today, Vishy, I don't know how how he comes back from it, because it's just so tough
Yeah.
when you've had nothing.
But also, after losing 2 games, sometimes it's also good to make a draw and then maybe try to fight, in the remaining games.
But he's had 2 whites here, Abhijit,
Well,
it's easy to say, fight. But what happens if Magnus wins a game with white? So you make a draw today, and then Magnus wins a game with white, and then you're 3 behind, and then.
but at least you are at the in the score sheet already. Yeah, you made a draw. You are 2 losses after that. You made a draw. So, I mean, you need something. Yeah, after 2 losses, your confidence has to be shattered.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm just looking for a bit of inspiration, Abhijit. This isn't for me inspiration. I don't feel like Vishy is. I just don't feel like he's. When I think of the old Vishy, that tiger,
Yeah.
the guy who used to rip people to shreds, the guy who
Especially with white pieces, yeah, people were.
I mean, just
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So, do you think he's changed as a player?
Well, everybody has to change with the time, Like yesterday, we were talking about Tal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said Mamadar or Rajabov, they had similar style, but when they came to the top, they also had to change,
Right.
to bit positional chess.
Sure.
So with Anand as well, I mean, with this young generation coming, Magnus, Caruana, Anish, you do have to make certain adjustments. But essentially, I mean, he still has the same style, this dynamic style, with brilliant opening preparation and amazing middle game. Though his endgame, what do you think?
Well, look, I mean, you don't get to be world champion
Yeah,
on numerous occasions and without being good at every phase. But
true.
he's coming up against a guy, and let's face it, Magnus Carlsen. I read something from Kasparov
Mm-hmm.
today. So it's something like Magnus Carlsen reminds Kasparov of a Capablanca.
You and I read that.
You're right. A Capablanca with the will of Alekhine.
Yeah.
And that would be a dead.
Truly amazing compliment,
Yeah, that's
coming from Kasparov.
I mean, to say that.
Yeah.
For all of you who don't know, Capablanca was world champion in the 1920s, and Alekhine thereafter in the 30s, around Second World War. And Capablanca was renowned for
His technique, yeah.
his technique, his endgame technique.
The
above
best
all.
technician
Right.
in the chess, yeah.
And Magnus is something similar
Something
there.
similar
And
there,
Alekhine, well, didn't have the greatest endgame technique. In fact, they played against each other for the World Championship in 1927, I believe, if I've got my dates right there. But Alekhine was an incredible...
and before the match of Alekhine Capablanca, nobody believed that Capablanca could lose the match.
Right, actually, he didn't even train that hard,
Yeah.
I believe. He just... people thought that Alekhine had no chance.
Yeah.
And then Alekhine beat Capablanca, which was a huge shock. But Alekhine showed in that match how amazing his tactical ability was. But the reason why Kasparov said about Alekhine is because he had this huge will to win.
Huge will, huge determination.
Determination to win was just incredible.
Incredible, yeah.
And Magnus has got that, and that combination is lethal. Of course, there are other players that you could compare Carlsen to.
Karpov, yeah.
Amongst others. I would say you probably couldn't compare him to Mikhail Tal. But, you know...
Whom would you compare Anand to?
It's a very good question. Vishy... Is there something Fisher-esque about Vishy? I mean,
I think he's more closer to Alekhine. That's what I feel.
Yeah?
I mean, strong in opening, strong in middle game. I mean,
yeah,
very good in tactics.
Maybe even Spassky.
Yeah, maybe even Spassky, yeah.
Spassky was very strong with the initiative.
Yeah.
In attacking positions, and Vishy as well in his career has produced some incredible attacking games. And I just feel like he has changed so much as a player. Of course, you have to adjust, but I would have liked to have seen the old Vishy today. I would have liked to have seen the Vishy from the 90s. Just try and...
But at least he's doing E4, yeah? That has been the Vishy trademark move for decades.
That's true, but if you're going to run into the Berlin...
yeah.
What's the upside to that? I would have liked to have seen Vishy play D4, even
on move 2, move 3.
Yeah, well, but a complex Slav,
yeah,
or a
I know, I agree
Queen's
with you.
Gambit, or something a bit different as well, just to.
But the problem is if you start again with white, let's say D4,
yeah.
you don't know what is coming for you. At least here he knows the Berlin is the main thing he has to see. D4, he just has to guess, you know.
Yeah, but...
And at this point of the match, it's the guesswork shouldn't be so much. Also, you know, when you lose a game, it's very difficult to come back. I mean...
Of course it is. Well, he's lost 2 games.
He has lost 2. I mean, I've seen many players, and there are only very few grandmasters who could, you know, really bounce back. Like Kasparov used to do it.
Yep.
After losing a game, he would immediately win the next one. And recently I've seen Caruana, you know. He loses, but the next game he doesn't show that he had lost the previous game. He just plays with the same energy, same attitude.
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's an uphill struggle for Vishy, but maybe in this particular position he is a bit better.
Yeah, let's see what Magnus is trying to calculate.
So what else is there? It is...
okay, let's say our normal plan, yeah, knight e6, knight d4.
So knight e6, f4.
Yeah, I was thinking knight d4.
And if I take...
Yeah, rook d4.
Well...
Maybe rook df1.
And then you're going to go f5, are you?
I was not so sure. Maybe you could go f5 yourself.
f5 again, and then if I take...
Queen takes... Yeah, I don't see...
A lot of
anything for black. Anything for white, sorry.
But a lot... the point is, I think, here, that there are a lot of positions are marginal, aren't they? I mean,
yeah.
A lot of them are... You know, white might have a little something, but a lot of the time these advantages are almost impossible to convert.
Yeah.
Unless you're Magnus Carlsen. Because the truth of the matter is, if we look at the games he's won, Abhijit, they are almost... You just can't imagine...
Especially the last one.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody could imagine, you know, Anand losing such kind of position.
It's just unfathomable. It's who else could win this ending? I mean, just the determination is incredible.
Maybe Kasparov was right. Like, I could only name Capablanca, you know,
right.
Who would even come close to winning that game.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Magnus has now been in the tank for a good 15 minutes. So he's
maybe knight e6, he wants to play c3, d4. White.
So if knight e6 instead of f4, you want to go c3.
But the only thing I'm worried about is you just play c5, yeah?
Right.
And then it doesn't make sense. I have weakened my d3 pawn for nothing, basically.
Right. But f4 certainly feels like the move you're going to play most of the time.
Yeah, but then what was the need to play h4, h5 and h6? I mean, if we are not using the h4,
So you mean around here just play...
Maybe not h4 also.
Well, another idea is to go g4 here. You can think about expanding, but you can also think about playing with c3 and d4. That was my...
So let's say king b7?
Yeah, let's play h4. So
let's do the same like how Magnus played, yeah? Takes and knight c5. We have a move.
And now... Well, we have a move.
Yeah.
Not the one we quite expected.
So, I mean...
This is an earlier variation, but yeah.
I don't really see the use of g4 so much, I mean, in this position.
Okay, but we have a move.
So, a5, yeah? Like the game day before yesterday, he's just slowly improving his position. He took his king, he played b6, king b7, now a5, and... Black looks completely fine, to be honest, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you play f4, so tell us about this a5 move then a bit more, Abhijit. What's the idea behind a5?
Well, basically you're just trying to gain space, and although White would never play b4 himself, but it's always good to secure the knight on c5. Yeah, and probably someday you might have some dream of playing a4, a3 yourself with black. Although I don't see it very soon, but someday, yeah. Basically, he's just improving his position and then asking Anand to show a plan, which is very difficult in such a type of positions.
Right. Okay, so 19 a5 played by Carlsen. He's now got up from his seat.
Again.
You'll see them get up quite a lot. They have their own restrooms and their own private areas, which I think they have a fridge, some drinks, some food.
All soft drinks,
tea. Yeah? Well, with Magnus, of course, it's the infamous orange juice.
Yeah.
It's the juice he's taken with him since he was a young boy, but
I know.
to be...
I played few tournaments with him, like this World Under 12, World Under 14. Still, he had the same orange juice, which he has now.
Incredible. Must really like that orange juice. And they use that room. They can... I'm sure they probably have sofas and... They can have a relax there and think about the position, and of course
they also have TV screen over there, yeah, to see whether the opponent has played the move or not.
Oh, right, okay.
I think so. I'm not
probably.
Yet. Yeah,
I would think so. Yeah.
Also, the interesting. Somebody told me interesting fact about day before yesterday's game, that Anand didn't even get up for a single bit from the board. He was sitting all throughout 6 hours.
Wow. That must have been torture then, because, of course, he had a bit of a nightmare yesterday. Okay, remember, guys at home, if you are watching and want to tell us something or ask us something, please get in touch with us via Twitter. Yeah. We've been having unprecedented amounts of feedback. And we'd love to hear from you. So please use the hashtag Anand Carlsen. Mm-hmm. So that's hashtag Anand Carlsen or hashtag FWCM 2013. And when we see a very good tweet, we'll put it on the screen and try and answer it. And tell us, what you think about not only today's game, the tournament, if you have questions about anything related to the topic.
Yeah.
Don't go
anything related to chess itself.
Yeah, we're trying to cover many things here because the games are very long. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. Okay, so
who would you pick in this position, white or black?
The truth of the matter is,
you would pick neither, yeah?
I would pick neither, yeah.
I thought so.
It reminds me of a famous quote about isolated queen's pawn positions. I think it was Julian Hodgson, very famous English grandmaster, a good friend of mine, said, I don't know how to play the white side and I loathe playing the black side. So it's sort of like one of those positions where actually I don't like it for either player. It's not really my style. I'm a bit more of an aggressive, dynamic kind of player. But then again, the reason why I'm not 2800, amongst other things, is because, I should probably learn how to play the slow positional quiet games as well. But if I had to pick a colour, I would pick white somehow.
We have a move.
And we have a move.
So, rook h7. I mean, so at least he's consistent, yeah?
Right.
h4, h5, h6 and rook h7.
Right. Well, the rook has finally penetrated. Now,
could play knight e6, and he can always kick it with knight g5 if he wants.
Right.
But maybe now knight e6, f4, and it's getting something, yeah.
So what happens if I try and exchange a pair of rooks?
Maybe queen f6?
That was my other idea.
Not to lose the h4.
Right, to keep control of the h4. And actually here, if I can get all the rooks off, those endings are just so tough to win if you're white. And he's playing instantly. Rook h8 played, and there's really only one move here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anything else but rook dh1 can be played. Nothing else makes sense.
Yeah. I mean either. I mean rook h1 and queen f6. It's rook h1. Yes, played rook
h1 played. And now we're expecting queen f6 just to keep control, because maybe you can take and now maybe you could play queen f6, but
maybe f4 here. If I take on e5, queen f1 check.
Aha, there's my trick. And I win the rook.
Yeah. Maybe I swap and I have to create some safe place for my king. Yeah, I have to play either a3 or a3 probably in this position, or b3.
Okay, a3. But
it's not like I'm playing for advantage or something. I'm just a position and I'm just playing, yeah.
Right, so for example, if I take on f4, I wanted to try this move, but maybe it's not so good.
He took immediately, like you said.
He did take, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I expect takes, and then queen f6.
Yeah.
Doesn't really feel like... Also, knight e6 can be considered, but...
Yeah, queen f6, it looks...
Queen f6 feels really natural.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just, more pieces are off the board. And with less pieces, it means there's less chances, basically, a lot of the time.
So not so less chances for Magnus, yeah? With less pieces.
Right, well, yeah, it seems like with Magnus it doesn't matter, but it feels like with Vishy, keeping some tension, keeping some pieces on would be good. He looks, Magnus, he's given a bit of a face there. He's confused by the way Vishy's played here. Maybe he's going to play knight e6. But then we were looking at f4, right?
Yeah.
So if knight e6 here, f4. Now queen f6. Does it make a difference? I suppose you can take on e5 and claim that you can win a pawn, can you?
I would at least think about it.
Yeah. No, let's... That feels a bit wrong. Let's just go queen f6.
Yeah, queen f6 looks so
Straight
natural
away.
to the idea rook h8.
Yeah.
Played queen f6 as we said.
Yeah. And he's playing very quickly. He's you know...
More like an autopilot mode, yeah?
Right. And the point is that also in this position, this pawn on f2 is a bit weak. So some way to avoid all of this, I don't know, maybe white would think about some queen h6 move in some random position, but here of course you can't because the pawn is on pre. So Carlsen now up again from his seat.
And you know, you don't even have to play rook h8 anymore. I mean, you could just play knight e6 and just...
And you're saying, well, what's that rook doing on h7, right? And in fact, knight e6 would also potentially... I don't know if that knight sits well at all on f3 or not. But in some positions that might be annoying. And then you could follow that up with c5. And you know, what is white doing basically? You moved your rook to the 7th, great, but now a pair of rooks are off.
To be honest, I really don't see anything for white here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a damp squib. It's a bit of a... And the last thing you want to do now with Vishy is allow black to somehow get this pawn on c5, get the knight into d4.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's not only
it's all over. I mean, you're just transposed to the game.
Yeah. And then
before
we're getting the hallmarks of the last games. I'm just very surprised by this.
And his body language it doesn't look confident at all.
No, again, it's that face that I mean, just feels like he's not happy at all now. So many pieces off the board. It's equal as you can get. I'm not sure of the computer evaluations, but it will be, you know, very equal. We do have a tweet, Sebi Horduna. What is the physical training and how much you train and study positions per day for a match like this? So physical training,
well, it's very important in this sport as well, and we have heard like Anand had been training, let's say 1 kilometer of swimming and couple of hours of biking and running, so he was training quite well, and we can also see he had lost a lot of weight.
Yes,
so it is very important. And you just look at Carlsen, he seems to be very fit as well.
Well, Magnus is super fit, isn't he? And that's been well publicised, how much he likes his sports.
Yeah.
And you see it paying off, because when you have games like yesterday, where you're here for 5 hours...
And especially with Carlsen, all the games are like 6 hours, 7 hours,
Right. And you have to be physically fit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just cannot maintain the levels of concentration. And that is... crucial now, a crucial part of the preparation.
Yeah, and the second part, to study position, well, I guess the remaining amount of time they just study, they just see chess, they analyze openings and try to find the weaknesses in their opponent's play.
Yeah, no, 100%. These guys are analysing positions with their teams. Of course, there's been a big controversy as to
who is in whose team,
and so on and so forth. But one thing's for sure is that, and Magnus himself was quoted by,
Yeah.
he never stops thinking about chess, no matter where he is. It's always on his mind.
Whether he's hiking, whether he's swimming, he's doing
Something,
sport.
yeah, he's always thinking about chess, and the reason for that is because you have to in order to maintain this level, and you don't get to 2,870 ELO points without not thinking about chess all the time. It's such an incredible feat to get that high. And Carlsen here is very relaxed, legs crossed. He's now asking Vishy, okay, what are you doing here, Vish? I'm sure he doesn't think he's better at all, but I just don't think he thinks he's worse.
Maybe now he just has to... If I were him, I would just force a draw somehow with white and get out and try to...
How do you force a draw?
That is a difficult question. I mean, he couldn't do it a day before, so...
So what happens after f4 then? Because that looks like a natural move here.
I guess you play rook h8. And I don't know, probably
A3
again, yeah.
Because you can't really take. Because after takes, d4 doesn't work because you can just take on e4, and you don't lose a piece. So a3, and now what about just knight e6 or just knight e6 here? And you can try this, but I don't know. Feels a bit. Can you? I mean, maybe that's giving white something.
But you could play the queen h1 at some point before. Let's say now queen h1.
Queen h1.
And sometimes not queen d5 immediately, but knight d4.
Knight d4.
Sorry, I was thinking queen d5 and then take, but you have knight b3.
Knight b3. You can play a4, but
but I really don't want to go
here.
No,
you don't want to go into this probably. Okay, so a3. So this is a very.
We have a very interesting tweet here.
Tweet Sunil Malik 84 Abidjan Lawrence. Please compare Fischer versus Spassky and Anand versus Carlsen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I would say before the start of the match, both Fischer and Carlsen, they were much higher in ranking. So they were slight favorite before the match, yeah.
Right.
But as the match started, both of them, Fischer lost to game number 2, and Magnus was not really showing anything till game 4, game 5, yeah.
Right.
So the odds were slightly favoring Anand and Spassky in the first half, yeah.
Right.
But both of them came back, and well, Carlsen is on +2 and Fischer just bet him comfortably.
Yeah, well, Fischer having lost and with that fate, I suppose one of the big things we could compare is in this match where Magnus played bishop takes a2.
Yeah.
In the Fischer-Spassky match, we had bishop takes h2.
Yeah.
But the difference being that in that game, Fischer actually lost.
Well, also bishop takes h2 was, he thought he could draw with any move, so he just decided, to show it that I could even play bishop h2 and draw a game. But he could still draw it after bishop takes h2, but it's just that it became so difficult after that.
Right.
And whereas bishop takes a2 was, positive move. You're playing for win after bishop takes a2.
So there's some similarities there.
Yeah.
Also, just to interrupt slightly, we have had the move f4. So this is now the position on the board, and we're waiting for Magnus, expecting rook to h8.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, another big comparison between Fischer-Spassky and Anand Carlsen is the level of attention, worldwide attention it's achieved. Of course, Fischer-Spassky was a bit more of a politically orientated match due to the Cold War,
the
backdrop of the Cold War. this is hardly political in that sense, but in terms of pure viewership numbers and chess fever, I mean, if you look at the papers here in India, the papers in Norway and other countries, they're dominated by chess, and this really hasn't been seen to such an extent since Fischer-Spassky. Maybe you could argue some Kasparov-Karpov bouts, but certainly...
Yeah, but the Fischer-Spassky was the high point of chess, yeah?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And we have move again, rook h8, as we said.
Okay, so this is with a line we've already looked at. And, well, Vishy has to take.
Yeah, I hope he's not thinking about fe5. Because it's the only move, yeah, rook h8?
Yeah, fe5. If sometimes you can have this blind spot,
can't
you? This would be an absolute disaster. I mean, this would finish the match.
Of course.
You would never be able to come back from that one. That loses a whole rook, so you have to take on h8.
I wonder what he's thinking. I mean,
well, he's probably thinking about his next move.
Yeah, but still, you know. I've been also noticing that Anand, he's not getting his tea regularly, you know. Well, all of us were debating, that why Anand is playing so bad. I mean, he's playing good chess, but why he's crumbling in the end? So he took rook h8.
Okay, at least he took on h8.
And some of us came to the conclusion that it was because of his tea.
How much of a fear factor does Carlsen bring, do you think, Average?
A lot, I think. It was same like Kasparov as well, you know. People had to not only play him, they had to play with this aura, you know. He had this aura with him. And you can see that Anand's Kasparov, I mean, after Kasparov bet him in this 95 match, Anand couldn't beat him in any classical games afterwards.
Did he never beat him again in a classical game? Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. So Anand didn't beat Kasparov post 95.
And I think the same goes for Carlsen as well. I mean, I was speaking to many these grandmasters, Anish, Fabiano, and I mean, they know when they're playing Carlsen, and they know it'll be a long game, it'll be a tough game, and there won't be much chances.
Magnus looks super relaxed, doesn't he? He knows that there's not so much.
It's typical Magnus position once again, I think. Though without rooks.
No rooks this time, so that is different.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just can't see where Vishy's getting any play in this position. The play he needs to get a win on the board. He needs a win desperately. And I just can't see it happening here. Another tweet, Purple Potato. Nice name. Purple Potato, alright. Do you think other players will start adopting Carlsen's style of playing outdrawn endgames? Would they be as successful?
I
actually think no. I actually think no, because I think being able to play like Magnus does in endings isn't something you learn.
You just do it by experience, I think. I mean, everybody tries nowadays to play it out, but not many people are able to convert it, you know?
I actually just don't think there is a player out there who can play these positions like Magnus. So I don't think people are going to start adopting it, because his style isn't actually very appealing at all. if we really are...
Well, it's appealing to me. I mean, if you can beat any grandmasters in an equal position with black, white, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but a lot of people like a bit more exciting chess. And I think it's just very difficult to emulate his style. But one thing's for sure, I'm sure he will popularize chess to a level that, well, hopefully will be greater than what it is now, and will get the funding and the sponsorship that the game deserves, and that I think that's a real possibility. But we've had a move. We have in fact had
this FE5, Queen E5, yeah,
and Queen E5. But now that you don't have D4,
because Queen takes E4, yeah,
because of Queen takes E4. If you don't have D4, what do you have? I mean, now actually now I've really start.
I mean, I'm threatening F5 for black.
No, this is exactly. This is where I start fearing for Vishy.
Yeah, and this is where you should always start thinking how to force a draw.
Yeah,
somewhere like this sort of position,
because F5 is threatened.
I mean, knight e6, c5. I mean,
well, knight e6 might run into d4.
But even d4, I don't think it's such a big deal. Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
No.
And in this queen and knight endgame, it's very important whose king is safer.
Right.
Although white king on b1 is also very safe, but black king on b7 can't be touched.
No, this king is very. This king is nicely protected by its pawns. The white king, though, yeah, you're right. It's a little unsafer. But look at the comparison of the queens. The black queen is far more active, and there is a legitimate threat in the position of f5. So let's say white plays queen f3. Can you just play f5 anyway?
Yeah, I think you can do it. Yeah, pawn takes because queen takes queen into f5.
Yeah, I mean the ending is.
And knight d4, you lose a pawn.
You lose a pawn. So gf5.
Yeah, not gf.
Sorry, gf5.
Gf5 immediately. Yeah.
And the point is that if you go d4, you never win a piece because I have queen e4, and that's just never. You're just never gonna win that position.
Also. Maybe white can press in that endgame which we are seeing.
So queen f3 has been played.
Yeah. So let's say we were seeing f5.
f5.
Take on f5.
Take.
d4.
Yeah.
Takes knight e4.
Yeah.
And maybe c3.
Yeah.
Because my king is much closer to the f5 pawn than yours, I think. Or for me, it's easier to reach the f5 pawn. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. I can always defend it with knight d6 though, right?
Yeah, also you could bring your king to e6. I mean,
yeah, right. So king c8, and we get something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not much going on there at all. So queen f3 is the move played by Vishy. Does he have to play f5? Well, no. He's not forced.
He can always play queen e7.
Yeah, he can just drop back, and he might just do that because d4 is still not an option.
Yeah.
And what do you play here with white?
I don't know. I've been suggesting a3 all the time. Yeah.
Okay, a3 and then knight.
No, not knight d6. Maybe knight e6. Yeah.
96 was d4, knight g5, right. Right, I think this is what he'll play. I think he'll play like this, and then if he can get c5 in certain positions.
No, with white I don't see a plan at all. What do? You can't play d4. I mean, even if you get d4, then what?
Right, yeah, it's sort of a. No, actually, I think we're going to see queen e7. I think f5.
Yeah.
No, queen e7 is.
Also, Magnus' style is to keep the position. He doesn't like to force issues.
Right, exactly. And then we could get a repeat, like so. But no, I think we'll see a3 or something here.
No, I think he would play a3.
And 96. It's just so solid for black, isn't it? I mean, if he can get his c5 move in as well.
Personally, I don't like c5 so much because you just off the diagonal, and with queen and knight, Although black is fine now if you play c5, but it's just that white
in
can
some positions,
get sometimes e5 and knight could jump to c3, b5, some play, yeah.
Right. So there's no rush to play c5 then. Just literally ask white.
I'll just sit probably. I'll play queen d7, queen e7. I don't know.
Yeah. Carlsen with just under an hour now to make 15 odd moves, not really too difficult. And Vishy,
well, time is not really a factor here
No.
in this game, I guess.
no, not at all.
And it was also interesting day before yesterday where Anand made the blunder rook a4 in the end. He had
Yeah.
plenty of time. He had
Yeah.
about half an hour or so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so time was never really a factor in this match, I guess.
And well, Magnus has played f5. Okay, so
I guess you have to take.
yeah, so you have to take.
Pawn takes.
Pawn takes.
Probably not d4, but what? Yeah.
Well, that's the point. What else do you do? ef5, gf5.
No, I think he would go d4.
d4,
Queen e4 takes. And c3. Yeah.
Actually, I like this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the point is when you come.
well, knight f4, king d6, right?
Yeah. Also king f6. I mean, it's.
Or king f6.
No, my point was if you move white king to e3, f3, you always have this idea with pawn to a4 and put knight d6, knight c4, and try to.
You know what? He's gonna play that as well. Yeah, he's gonna. And this ending is just. I mean, it's nothing special at all. So f5 on the board. I think Vishy has to take.
Yeah, looks forced to me. I mean, is there something else? Maybe some queen f4. Yeah.
Well, queen f4. I think I can just take it.
Yeah. Knight takes pawn, or g5. Even g5.
I would even g5. Yeah. Even g5. Might.
You
work.
sure?
Well, actually, hold on. I can take here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It looked more natural. d4. Yeah. Ooh.
That's an annoying move.
Yeah, but he took on f5.
Okay.
Probably I would, for queen f4, I would just go back, no?
Yeah, you can also just go back because now the knight's unprotected.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, queen f4, just queen e7, and the pin. So he took on f5, and now Magnus will recapture with
the pawn.
And he looks bored. He's not. And Vishy
so
very aggressively
plays c3.
plays c3.
He wants to play knight d4, I guess. Also, king c2, d4, and he's bringing his king.
Okay, so
it's a multi-purpose move.
So we play knight e6 to defend.
Yeah, I mean, it's a move, but it's not a winning move.
You
Yeah.
can play queen d5.
Yeah, you could also play queen f6. I mean, it's
Queen e5 looks pretty.
Of course,
normal,
pretty
though, right? I mean,
pretty drawish, I guess. Yeah.
And with that said, after c3, we're going to have a change in commentary team, and well, I don't know if we're going to come back, Abhijit.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if I'm honest.
I'd be surprised myself. Yeah.
But for the moment, here are Grandmasters Susan Polgar and Ramesh, who are going to explore the delights of this position, and hopefully we'll be back a bit later.
Welcome, this is Susan Polgar with Grandmaster Ramesh, back doing live commentary, continuing the commentary of Game 7 of the World Chess Championship from Chennai, India. And the reigning champion, Viswanathan Anand, had the white pieces in this game, while the challenger with the black pieces. We anticipated it to be a very exciting battle. Many of us felt that this is the perhaps last opportunity for Anand to have a realistic chance to come back. And to some of our surprise, he played in a more cautious style, kind of trying to give Magnus his own medicine. But so far it doesn't seem that he is accomplishing much in the position in the game. Of course, Magnus is an incredible defender as well.
The position seems it's getting simplified with each move. We have a move knight e6 by Carlsen. Probably it was to prevent knight d4, which was one of the threats for white in the earlier move.
So we have seen 28 moves by each player, and of course they have plenty of time on the clock. They are almost blitzing out or playing like rapid chess, practically very, very quick. And I don't expect any rabbits coming out of the hat today.
You can never be sure.
You can never ever be sure, but
the chances seems to be very, very minimal this time.
Very minimal this time, indeed. It's very simplified, more and more by every move. White has a very theoretical edge in that has a better pawn structure, but I think it will remain theoretical because it's practically, I think, impossible for white to take advantage of that.
Maybe he should
slight
try
advantage.
to play king c2 here and probably save on a move. Like if he plays d4, queen d5, and if there is an exchange, black gets rid of the pawn.
The doubled pawns, yes.
White would ideally like to do something like this and maybe try to trade off because the white king could be active. But the d4 move here may not be helping white much. So maybe he could consider playing king c2 first. And
yes, indeed.
In that sense, if queen d5 immediately, white can try to gain a move, so to say, to either exchange.
And in such situations, if indeed that would happen, the black king also would be better off running to the other side of the board, making sure that the f5 pawn that could become a target of white's king will be protected properly. And indeed, we are seeing the move that we were discussing, the king c2, a very common thing in endgames in chess, that unlike in the beginning and the middle of the game, when you always would want to have your king safe, especially as long as there are queens on the board, in the endgame it's the contrary. You want your king to be an active participant in the game. You need your king to help, to protect pawns or even attack pawns in some cases. So that's a big contrast between the endgame and the other parts of the game. So now we are seeing Magnus Carlsen contemplating what should his next move be. Queen d5 is one option.
Otherwise he can choose to create an attack on the queen side for the fact that the king is coming towards the center, the queen side is slightly exposed. But the pawn on f5 would gives him some issues with that.
And here we have a move, knight g5, that's attacking the queen. Now the queen needs to move away, otherwise it will be captured, and the queen has to be really careful where it moves to, because at the moment the white queen is guarding the knight, and let's highlight our knight on e2. So if the queen is not careful, then the black queen could capture the white knight. So the queen has very limited choices where to go. Could go to f2 or f1 or g2, pretty much limited to those squares.
Probably queen g2 is an interesting square to try to play knight
It's
d4.
the most logical one, right? And then to maintain that pin over black's pawn on c6. And then to try to play knight d5
against
and attack the pawns. Yes, pawns. Indeed.
Queen f2 looks kind of passive.
Compared to queen g2.
Compared to queen g2.
And Anand seems to be ready for
also
his
an interesting
move.
option probably. Maybe it's not so bad either because we keep the pressure on the
The
other
queen
pawn.
G2, you mean?
Yeah, with queen
Queen
G2 we
F2.
keep the pressure on C6.
C6.
With queen
This
F2 we keep the
F5.
yeah, and maybe in this case we could go queen G2, and this could be in trouble as well. So both the moves look not so bad.
Yes, indeed. So now it is Anand's move, and he almost threatened to move, and here he comes, and he moves
Queen
to
F2.
F2, rather I guess focusing perhaps on the pawn on
F-pawn.
F5. Next move, the idea is, as we show with the green arrow, knight moving to D4 to attack that pawn a
Probably
second time.
C5 could be an option here.
And immediately Magnus answered, moving the knight to E6, preventing exactly that.
And offering
So now
repetition.
if the knight would move to D4, then the knight could trade, which would favor black, because then white would end up with a doubled pawn on the D file. So now the question is, what can Anand do to try to make any kind of progress? Honestly, objectively speaking, I don't think either side can make any
Probably he
significant
could try
progress.
playing queen F3, knight G5 and queen G2, since he has already tried queen F2.
Right.
Maybe he could
And
do
here
that.
comes the move, repeating
Okay.
for the second time, right?
Yeah.
Queen F3 and knight G5, and this is a hidden draw offer, we can say. And I think we may see, I think we are seeing what we've seen in game 1 and game 2. The moves are being repeated already for the second time, and handshake. Magnus put his hand out and Anand shook it, and it's a draw. So the score is 4.5 to 2.5 after only 7 games into the match. It's a
very pleased with the result.
I think so. I think the Carlsen team and Magnus himself should be quite pleased, getting rid of a black game, which is a slight disadvantage in the beginning of the game, to be the second one to move. Anand, I guess, didn't get anything out of the opening, must be slightly disappointed, although maybe he weren't ready to take go all-out chances. Perhaps he is remembering game 3, where even though he had the black pieces, he managed to get a significant advantage and chances to win. We are seeing right now the arbiters dealing with the formalities, I guess, of the game. Exactly. But in the meantime, both players are being taken to the press conference, so momentarily we'll be switching over, so you can hear what the players have to say about their state of mind, about the game itself, about what they expect for the next coming days. Tomorrow, of course, will be game 8. There is no day off in between 7 and 8. We'll see with Magnus having the white pieces and Anand being with the black pieces. Perhaps their team prepared something along the lines of what we saw in game 3.
Not the kind of player who is going to play safe and go for a straight draw. There will be excitement with Carlsen on both the
interesting,
colors.
Definitely interesting to see what they both prepare for all of us to see. And I'm sure Anand will fight and try to get opportunities to come back and win. And if he would win even one game, all of a sudden everything would be back.
Anything could be possible.
Back open for takes. So, well, we had a relatively short day today, one of the shorter ones since the second day. And the players, I guess, can relax a little bit today as well. You never know with Magnus. He may even be looking for some sporting activity. He loves
There's a whole evening ahead of him.
Exactly. And I know he likes to sleep in. He likes to wake up late and stay up late at night. So it's only 5 o'clock here in Chennai in the afternoon. So he may get a basketball or a football game in.
Or enjoy a nice swim.
Yeah, to get a nice swim, get his tension released through those sporting activities. And I have to tell you, I witnessed him on the basketball court, on a soccer field, football field. He
plays golf
so
as well.
Energetic. He plays all kind of sports, tennis. I've seen him play tennis as well, and he's pretty good at all those sports he does. and he really enjoys them, and he has an amazing intensity. Just like in chess, he hardly knows the word draw unless it's forced by repetition. The same on in physical sports. He's just amazing compared to his peers, other chess players that I've seen him play with that are his age, same age, and his energy level is just absolutely impressive and remarkable.
Yeah. Today's draw, I think, broke the gave some time for. Yeah, now we have the players
and
ready for the press conference.
Yes, we do see both of them.
Waiting for the press officer. I think today's draw will give Anand some breathing space. It broke the pattern how the game has been.
I saw even a brief smile by Anand, so I think he's okay and he's ready to fight in the next 5 games.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome for the press conference. We have one more game finished, 7th round of World Championship match between Viswanathan Anand and Magnus Carlsen. The game finished in a draw, and can you please share with us your comments? Can you say what happened today? Maybe.
Okay, so I chose a line that, well, actually both of us have played quite a bit in the past. Knight bd2. He went for bishop g4 instead. And, well, then you get a very slow kind of maneuvering game where after the next 3 moves, White has 2 plans, which is, one is to play f4, and the other, like in the game, is to play on the h file. The problem with f4, I thought it's not very effective because black is basically preparing himself to go knight f8, e6. So I tried castles, and here I thought I might be able to press a little bit. I understand it's not huge, but somehow I was not really able to make it happen. Maybe there's something to be said for bishop g5, f6, and then coming back and then trying h5. I thought here I might get something with g3, f4, and perhaps a rook on the h file, but it didn't really materialize for much. Swapping all the rooks, I think, gives him adequate counterplay, so we just made a draw.
Yeah. So Magnus, please, your comments.
Yeah, not so much more to say. Of course, yes, as you said, we both played this line. There are many different plans, of course, and but whatever you play, it's usually quite slow and the game goes on. But I thought I was doing more or less fine, just a little bit worse, but nothing real. And I thought the key here after g3, a5 is that f4 can just be met by f5 and then everything goes off. For instance, if I'd gone rook h8 immediately, then f4 and I cannot exchange all the pieces. Or also knight e6, f4 takes, f5, e5, g5, rook e1, and I was not sure if I'd managed to chop everything off. But anyway, what happened in the game was just drawish. So.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. So, was there any moment black could have been kind of danger? You think it was just fine, right, Magnus?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be just a tiny bit more pleasant for white, but my pieces are well developed and I have no particular weaknesses, so I don't think I should be in any major trouble.
Yeah, thank you. And so the question to the players, how did you cope with the pressure yesterday? What did you do?
Nothing really special. I mean, the weather doesn't really allow you to do very much. I mean, it's a pleasant time to be here, but you can't really go out. And so I stayed at the hotel and did some work.
Yeah, thank you. Any sport?
Yeah. I mean,
And Magnus, we saw your pictures that you were playing basketball. Is it right, or volleyball? I don't know. Yesterday.
Yeah, we played a bit of football and basketball. Not too successfully, but it was fun.
Okay, thank you. And do we have questions, journalists? Please.
Question to Anand. At the end of it, after this result, do you feel more of relieved or you look at it as opportunity lost for White? With White is it now only 2 remaining?
So finally we have a microphone. Maybe you can repeat because it's not clear.
Do you look at it as opportunity lost or is there a relief?
Well, I mean, obviously, after the last 2 games, it's nice to break this result. But I was hoping for, to be able to press him a little bit, and I didn't manage very much, to be honest.
Yeah. Other questions, please? But
The question is to Magnus. Are you disappointed that the game was relatively short today?
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, I have the lead. I won my last game with Black, so this suited me just fine.
yeah. And also question to Viswanathan Anand. Actually, yesterday, did you try to think about changing strategy or doing something else? Maybe even strategy in some details, like some superstitious things.
Well, of course, we had to assess what was going on, but that's not really something I can explain now.
Yeah. What about some things like lucky pen? I don't know, something. You don't believe in this?
There were other things to do.
Yeah. Thank you. And other questions, please?
Vishy, here is Neerav from Gujarat Samachar. My question to you, that there are very exceptional players in the world who recover so easily, not so easily like you, and you have the ability to recover so easily. So shall we expect some sharp battle on behalf of you to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely keep trying.
Thank you.
Anand,
Other questions?
Are you a relieved lot now?
What's that?
Sorry?
Are you a relieved lot now?
No, it's not like... obviously, the game's unpleasant. There's no getting around that, the last 2. But, well, we played a game today and we'll try again.
Yeah. Other questions? This part? No?
Just one last question. Thousands of kids are watching your play, and it looks like the psychological aspect of the game different from a match and a tournament. So how much it's important on the aspect of psychology, and what do you feel about it? But the match that even the last 2 games, the last game especially, it was not being outplayed. Just that you pressed him on, and just out of pressure and made a small mistake. What do you think about the psychology in the chess, and to the kids especially watching across the world?
For me?
I think so, yes. For both, okay.
That was a really long question. I don't know. I think, of course, there are some psychological aspects. For instance, there was no doubt that the outcome of Game 5 influenced the next game, and I think that's unavoidable in a match. So that's a little bit different, but you just try to move on as best as you can, but it's not so easy, especially if you're lost, of course.
Question was for both, if we get it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yes, there's a lot of psychology involved.
Yeah, please.
This question is for both of you. A lot of the fans at home are sending good messages, best wishes to both of you on the social media. Do you read any of it? Do you see any of it? Or your teams relay it to you at all?
Well, in general, if they think I should know something, they let me know. But I don't know what they're not telling me. So.
Magnus?
Yeah, I've been following it just a little bit, and I'm very happy, very thankful for all of those who wish me well, and for those who don't, I don't read it anyways.
Yes, actually, what I've heard that in Norway now the sales of the chess boards, chess sets increased 3 times. What do you think about it? Shall we expect a big chess boom in Norway?
Yeah, I'm just really happy to see that people are following the match, that they're interested. So just keep it going, and I'll do my best to continue to keep up the good work. Yeah.
Okay, so other questions? Yes, please.
It's a question to Magnus. After the first game, you said there were some butterflies, and after the third game, you said you were quite nervous still. So, what about the butterflies, and what about your nerves?
I don't know. I guess they're still there. I think it's unavoidable, but as the match goes along, you settle in, and then it's maybe easier. I don't know.
Can you recall a very nervous moment during one of your games?
Yes.
Which one?
He's insisting. He wants to know which. Yes?
Yes. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's very optimistic of you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have questions? Maybe last 1-2 questions.
Yes, one
Please.
question from Kameshwaran to Mr. Anand. Today the game went on well, the tensions released, of course. Tomorrow what Anand is going to do? He has got a plan to outwit his opponent and see that your opponent should not cross a Rubicon of 6 points, and so you can make it up.
Yes, well, in general, that's the plan. To try and do something.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for coming for the press conference and your comments.
Thank you.